All right. Looks like we got the top of the hour here. It's noon in my parts. Looks like it's 11 o'clock on the Pacific side and on the East Coast side. What you got, about 2 o'clock there, Ryan?
2 o'clock on the nose.
All right. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, Virtual Thursday is going to be about water supply, ISO, the Insurance Service Organization, and you, and how we can help you get credit for that, maximize your credit. And what we just talked about, getting credit for your jurisdiction's water supply system. Today's date, presented by myself, Chris Ekstrom, and Ryan Dennett. A little bit about me. This is me. I'm a regional trainer with emergency reporting. I'm also a full-time training captain with Cripple Creek Fire Department out here in Colorado. I've got 10 years in the fire service, just about, and I've been an emergency reporting customer since 2006 and a trainer with emergency reporting since 2014. And without that, I'm going to send it over to Ryan and let him go.
And I am Ryan Dennett, also one of the regional trainers here for emergency reporting. Been doing that for about the same time as Chris, since last March or so. I am a volunteer training captain with the Gorham Fire Department, as well as a firefighter full-time for the town of Brunswick. Both of these departments, we use emergency reporting, and I've been a customer, a user of the system since 2010 with Brunswick, and about the same time frame as Chris in the fire service, about 11 years. So,
thanks, Ryan. All right. So our training opportunities, like we do on all regional or all virtual Thursdays, we have the online training, kind of like what we're doing today. We've got online training, virtual Thursday, every other Thursday, about 2 a month. And then we also can do online training for your department specifically, contact emergency reporting, contact Bob or customer support, and they can get you squared away on that. We can also do on-site training where we can come out, see you guys. If it works out better, we can work with your administrators, work with the people setting up the modules in emergency reporting, and kind of customize that to your needs in person, one-on-one. And then we also have the regional training conferences hosted about 4 or 5 a year across the US, just dependent on the needs of the nation. So some of those are coming up. If you have any questions about that, contact support, or you can always give us a call and we can let you know when those are coming up. All right, the emergency reporting experience, what you're going to get when you go to those regional training conferences is you're going to start with the essentials, the basics of how to use the system, how to navigate the system. Then you're going to get into the integration, looking at setups and more specifics on how to set up and how to teach your administrators how to set up each specific module and tailor meet the needs of the customers or the students in the training. And then we get into lead ER, where we actually make some changes, do some mini meta scrums or some mini scrums, and kind of talk about what ideas are the best and fight it out and see who gets the best idea and get that posted onto the site and get some changes happening for what you guys need. Upcoming training, if you have any questions or want to know about any upcoming training, go ahead and send an email over here to training@emergencyreporting.com, and customer service, one of us will get back to you and we'll get your questions answered and get you a schedule sent out. All right, welcome to any of the new and upgraded customers. Thank you guys, hope you enjoy this. And where to find the latest information? Well, when you log into the system, you're going to see this home login page, your daybook page, all that. Right up top here, you're going to have a little bar, looks similar to this, and it's going to pop up on top. If you're logged into the system today, I would advise that, and you can kind of play along. If you've got 2 screens, you can play along while we're doing this and look in your own system and practice setting up your system to meet these needs. All of this information is going to go up in there, and it's a hyperlinked ability, so you can click on it, it'll take you right into there. Also, you've got the support tab right over here on the right side. You click on that support tab, that'll take you into all the support needs, contact information. All right, user voice. One thing that we really like to do in emergency reporting is develop a system, send it out to y'all, and if you guys like it, great. And if you see something that you really need, something that you need added or changed within the system, you vote here at feedback.emergencyreporting.com. That's your voice. That's where you get all of that information delivered to us or disseminated to us, and we make changes. All right. without further ado on this, we're going to talk about today, as we talked about hydrants, and how to get hydrants, how to get credit or maximize the amount of credit you get in ISO. So today's objectives, we're going to go through getting the most out of the hydrant module. Ryan's going to take you through a basic overview and talk about the tubular layout and that type of stuff. And we're going to talk about ISO water supply system basics. We're also going to talk about getting credit for your jurisdiction's water supply system. I'm sure the main reason most of y'all are here. Also, getting credit for inspecting and flow testing hydrants kind of goes right in line with this second to last one. Flow testing and inspection is a big portion of what they're looking for when ISO comes out to check you. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, guys and gals, and we'll go ahead and get started. Some of the key terms and points we're going to go over today, just in case I start talking in acronyms and don't catch myself. If I say FSRS, that's going to be Fire Suppression Rating Schedule. And what I'm going to be referring today is the 2012 Fire Suppression Rating Schedule. And if I start talking about a PPC, the Public Protection Classification, this is the rating that your department gets. So if you're an ISO 3, ISO 5, ISO 1, that is that Public Protection Classification number. So that's what we're talking about there. What is all of this? The PPC measures the effectiveness of public fire protection. So this is measuring the, ISO is measuring the entire effectiveness of the entire system. And this is a community's suppression service capabilities relative to the risk. All right, all that means is this is your community's need and not a department's rating. So this is taking into consideration a lot of other departments, your water department, things like that, not just the fire department. We just want to remember that as we're going through. So why do we use this? Why is ISO important? Well, it's a proven and predictable correlation between PPC, or that public protection classification, and loss. So this quick chart right here, you talk about the severity and the claim count. Your severity and your claim count goes up as your ISO score goes up. This is why some insurance companies choose to use this to dictate, the rates of their customers. All right. So any assistance that you need, you can always contact support at emergency reporting. If it's specific to ISO, we've got a few things in here, and I'm going to leave this page up here for a few minutes so that you guys can either screenshot that, control print screen, or you can go in and actually take notes if you want to do that with paper. So the ISO public protection representatives can be reached by phone 800-444-4554. Also at www.isomitigation.com/talk. Okay, this is the website down here, just www.isomitigation.com. And when you go into that website, this is dedicated to community hazard mitigation protection programs. Your fire chiefs and administrative officials can register for free online access and get a lot of their questions asked and kind of get a how-to guide. And it's a very valuable tool as you're coming up on an ISO inspection and trying to set your department up for ISO. Leave that up for about a minute and let you get enough time to take notes. All right. So what does your public protection classification depend on? Well, it depends on the needed fire flows. It depends on your dispatch or your emergency communication system. It also depends on the fire department. And then a big portion of that is water supply. And this is where we're going to spend our time today, is under water supply. This is going to include inspection, flow testing of hydrants, alternative water supply operations. So if you're draft-in cisterns, things like that. And then a careful evaluation of the amount of available water compared with the needed water to suppress fires up to 3,500 GPM. Outside of that, it's a totally different thing, and you'd have to contact ISO for that. So that's where we're going to spend our time today. So at that point, I think we're going to pass it off to Ryan, and he's going to go through a brief overview on how to use this system. Give me 1 second, Ryan, and I'll get squared away.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over just a brief overview of the basics of the hydrants module. As you can see, and I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have already done some work within the Hydrants module and are familiar with the grid layout, which you'll find in the rest of the system, whether it be occupancies or training or any of that. We do this grid layout simply because it makes sorting very simple, easy to filter and find exactly what we're looking for, pretty much like an Excel spreadsheet. Let's run through the different columns that we have here. So let's just start off left to right. Your ID number is simply a number to identify a specific hydrant. And that can be something that either you as a fire department set up, or if you have like a private water district, it may be the numbers that they use to track the hydrants. So if you have a private water district and they have hydrant numbers, I would recommend that you use that information. The next column is our service, and all that is the hydrant in service or is it out of service? And this is set as an option on the main screen of each hydrant, which we're not going to take a look at that right now because we're going to keep going through, but just so you know where to find that. Our next column is we have our type, and this is where we generally specify, is this a pressurized hydrant? Is this a drafting site? Is it a dry hydrant, a cistern, any of that? And you'll notice here that Chris has his account set up with those specific ISO categories and types of hydrants in mind. And because we're looking at meeting the needs of reporting for ISO, this is a great way to have that set up. Again, this is entirely up to you how you choose to record your information, but just keep in mind that the type is really breaking it apart as to, like I said, pressurized hydrant, dry hydrant, etc. And definitely don't forget to put in your drafting sites. Our address, I don't think that really takes much explaining. Simply, what is the closest address or reference point for that particular hydrant? And that is very closely associated with the next column, which is location. The location, what it does though, is allows you to really specify a description of where that is in reference to the address. So we'll take the example of we have a big box store, we'll say Lowe's, for example. What we can do is, if more likely than not, we have at least 2, maybe 3 hydrants around that facility because it's so large. What we can really do is in the location specify, say, the Alpha Bravo corner of Lowe's, rather than just putting in the address again or description. So your location is a very valuable, especially when you're looking through, to be able to quickly reference where your hydrants are located. The next 3 columns that we have, I like to kind of refer to as a kind of a catch-all. These are fields that, although they have kind of specific things in mind, your district, zone, or status, they can really be used however your department needs them. In this case, Chris has his set up within city limits or outside of city limits. My department, the way that we have them set up is our town is broken down into 7 districts for response, and we have each one of those listed out so we can easily sort what hydrants we have within certain districts. Your zone, again, kind of a catch-all. Really use it for however is important for you. If your water district has specific zoning for that they record for hydrants, this is a great place to record that if you don't need it for something else. My department, what we've done is we've actually put in our more specific response areas. So within each response district, we have actual zones for response. So I may have one district that has 4 zones within it. And this is where how we're tracking that. The last column, your status, is generally defaulted to an in-service or out-of-service, or needs maintenance, things like that. Well, I find that kind of redundant from our original column of service. We have that information there. If we have a separate column or spot for tracking in-service or out-of-service, it can often cause confusion as to where we mark those things. So we put a hydrant out of service, which spot do we mark it in? And really we want to mark that in the service column or portion of the hydrant. So as you can see here, what Chris has done is his department has chosen to use the status field to record which shift is responsible for the flow testing of these hydrants. My department, what we've chosen, because I'm up in Maine, we get snow, and we have to go out and shovel the hydrants. It's actually our responsibility, not the water district's. I've gone in and created a status which shows which hydrant shoveling list that we use. So again, the status really, I like putting that in there, is this is something that you can really use to define something that your department needs for tracking. And then lastly, to the far right, we've got a bunch of icons that I'm sure you're familiar with, because again, they kind of mirror things throughout the system. We have the ability to quickly print a hydrant record, or the next one, our little notepad, is simply to go in and edit the hydrant information. To the right of that, we have a quick link to the flow testing records for that hydrant, where from there we can add a new one or review others that are already in place. And the same goes for the work orders. You can go in and view any work orders on the hydrants or add a new one. And then we have our nifty little trash can, which says delete, but it really, it's one of the spots where we are archiving a record. So that's kind of the overview here of the grid view. So we're going to jump into the settings real quick. And one of the things that's really important, you'll notice here, the Hydrants module has a settings button up at the top. And with any module that has that, you'll find that in your training module, your occupancies, and obviously here in Hydrants. That's really where you want to go to get things set up prior to adding too much information. So we're just going to run through a few of these tabs real quick. Our districts tab, so this is where we're getting that information that we saw on the grid view, as well as to the far right, we've got our statuses, our types, and our zones. All of these things that we just talked about that show up on the grid view are set up here in the settings. Now, the other important things here within the settings that we want to talk about specifically for ISO is the maintenance and maintenance intervals. So our maintenance types, when we go into this is where we can set up what we want to be able to track for maintenance for a hydrant. As you can see here, it's just a simple add new maintenance type and free text enter whatever is appropriate for what you're looking to do. In this case, we have some options, whether it's clean, repair. You may not be responsible for repairing hydrants, but you might want to track repairs that your water district has made. One of the other things, just really briefly, I want to throw in there is if you have a good working relationship with your water district, a lot of water districts don't actually have good record keeping. Within the system here, you have the ability to provide your water district with a login to your system, say give them access only to the Hydrants module, and that would allow them to go in and use your system for their record keeping, but it benefits you as well. But within the maintenance types here, the two that we're really going to focus on right now are the annual inspection and flow and the fire flow test and inspection. These are things that are important for ISO. And once we go over to the next tab, our maintenance intervals, we'll actually see that this is where we can set up how frequently we want these done. So if we hit add new maintenance interval, like Chris has just done, we're showing adding a new record. Our maintenance interval name is simply whatever we choose. In this case, we want to do an annual inspection and flow test because it has to be done annually. Type that in to that field, and then our next field is a drop down based on the maintenance types that we have set up in the previous tab. As you can see that this corresponds exactly to what you're seeing here where Chris's cursor is. So our next thing that we need to set is our interval. And what you want to do here is simply add a numeric value. In this case, 1, and your next field is your drop down of choosing, day, week, month, year, etc., or quarter. And simply choose whatever is appropriate. In this case, since we're doing an annual, obviously we're going to set it to 1 year. And then the last little box that we have down here is our alert days. And what that is doing is just telling us how far out before this is due that we want to be able to set up a notification for this to show that, hey, we have an upcoming annual inspection for a particular hydrant. And so adding a new maintenance interval is as simple as that. And from there, if you have to, you can just edit or delete one if you no longer need to use it. So those are the basics of our setting. We're actually going to skip over the next two, the manufacturers and ownerships, and we're going to jump into the service responsibilities. So your service responsibilities is just a spot where you can track who is responsible for maintenance of the hydrant, whether it's the fire department, the water district, etc. So that's a real brief overview of getting your hydrants module set up and then being able to search and filter hydrants that you're looking for. Chris,
Thank you, Ryan.
All yours.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and jump back into the PowerPoint here real quick, and we're going to discuss some of these needs. Give me a second here. I apologize. I have to flip my screen over. Okay. So when ISO shows up, or when you're looking at setting up what Ryan just showed you, it's real important to kind of go through and maybe download a version of the fire suppression rating schedule so that you can use that. And it's going to be category 600 is going to be the category that we're talking about within the FSRS, or the Fire Suppression Rating Schedule. I apologize. And once you do that, that's again the 2012 edition. What's going to happen is you're going to get certain criteria. This is a nifty spreadsheet that was given to me actually by some folks in Oklahoma to kind of check where you're at and what each change does to your actual score. So this kind of lays out exactly what we're getting here. What it's going to start off with is what we talked about before. Is this is the public protection classification, meaning not just the fire department, not just the dispatch center, not just the water supply, but everything cumulatively. Now, you'll see this is 40% of your total score. So this is almost half of everything of your entire score that you're going to get. So this is a pretty important category. And we talk about this CWS, the credit for water supply, you've got a total amount of 40 points, okay? Out of those 40 points, you've got these criteria within here. So you've got credit for a supply system, credit for hydrants, and then your credit for inspection and fire flow testing, which is further broken down here. Inspections and flow testing. Now, when it talks about the inspection and flow testing frequencies, that does go into a little bit more depth in the fire suppression rating schedule. It talks about if it's annually done as a inspection, then you'll max out the most amount of points. If it's done every 2 years, you're going to get a little fewer points. Every 3 years, fewer points, then so on and so forth. It's all prorated at that point. And then you've got your credit for frequency of flow testing. Okay, and that's going to be every 5 years, 6 years, stuff like that. All of this information can be found as far as how to inspect hydrants and how to flow test hydrants, fire flow testing. That can all be found in the American Water Works Association M as in Michael 117 manual. That's a mouthful, I know. If you look it up, it's a pretty expensive book, but you can buy that online. And that's something that if maybe your water department might have that, you can borrow it from them. That type of thing will it tells you, it's the guide on how hydrants work. And that's what ISO follows when it talks about the specifics and how to do these things. So getting back onto this, your credit for your supply system here is this long formula. Now, I don't know about y'all, but this math seems a lot to me. So that's why this spreadsheet's done. Excel can do this math for you. So, if you have any questions, contact support, contact me, and we can send you over the spreadsheets. You can use it, and I would definitely recommend saving the spreadsheet. That way, if you make a change to it or you delete one of the columns or get rid of the formulas, you can just go back and revert to your saved edition. The other portion on here, we talk about the NFF, or the needed fire flow. And I'm going to do this page, and then we're going to go back out into the system and show you where we're going to find that needed fire flow. And that's going to be in the occupancy module under Prefire Plans. All right, your HD, or your hydrant distribution, that's going to be located in your occupancy module under fire protection systems. So you can see this whole system is kind of like a giant spider web, where all of those modules within our system are kind of working together, and we're able to pull this information. And then your MC here is going to be your main capacity, and all of that information is in the details of each specific hydrant, and I'll show you where that is. If you have any other questions or anything else that you need on the needed fire flow, you can find that information at the same website, isomitigation.com/NFF for needed fire flow. All right, so as we talked about before, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next page, and we'll get back into here. All right, so the next portion on here is your credit for hydrants, or CH. And this is section 621 of that fire suppression rating schedule. And what this talks about is your pressure hydrants. That's what pH stands for. This is your pH, all right? These are those categories that I talked about earlier that Ryan was showing you that I have chosen to set my system in there. You still have, as you see, cistern or suction points, flush tight, ground level, anything with less than a 6-inch branch, and then any hydrant that has only one 2.5-inch outlet, and then you get into the B and the A. All right, and this is the amount of points that you're going to be assigned for those hydrants. The formula there, pressure hydrants divided by 100 times 3, that's where you're going to get this number right there for it. So if you get 100 divided by 3, right, divided by 100 times 3, that's 3. That's where you're going to get your max points. So that's kind of how this works, okay? Now your pressure hydrants, settings, and types, we talked about how to get in there. If you have any questions, you can refer back. This session is being recorded. You can always watch the session. Usually takes about a week or two to get posted, and that'll be under the support setting, and you can view these videos. You can rewind back and see kind of what we were talking about there, and you can set those hydrants up. If you use any setting, that's fine. Just understand that it's nice to have this set up to where you can actually go back and give ISO the report that they're looking for. But if you answer to other agencies or other things, then definitely set that up to meet your needs and set yourself up for the win. And then once this is all set up, everything that you're doing in here, the reason for that is so you can pull useful data and extract useful data out of the system. That report number I would recommend is 1243 or 1243, and that report will actually show you all of those hydrants and when they were all of the types that they have within that hydrant. You can also download that entire tubular grid that Ryan was showing you at the beginning. You can turn that into a CSS or a CSV file. A lot of different things you can do with that, and we have some different videos on training on that. We're not going to get into that today because we just don't have time. All right. The next one we're talking about are credit for hydrant inspection and flow testing. Okay, this is going to be your total score dependent on how often you're testing these hydrants. All right, and that's broken down. Total of 7 points, 4 points for frequency of inspection, 3 points for the flow testing. And that's where Ryan showed you through hydrants, maintenance intervals, once you get into the settings. So go into your hydrants, go into your settings, into the maintenance intervals, and then set up your maintenance intervals. I've kept mine simple because I only have to answer to ISO when it comes to this. My water department handles everything else. But when it comes to ISO, I have to work with the water department to get ISO exactly what they need. So on this one, again, we talked about it, some really good reports. 12 report number 1250. This is going to be following the NFPA 291, okay, schedule as far as how to test hydrants. So this is your NFPA 291 report, what hydrant is red versus orange versus green versus blue, that type of thing, okay. Also, report number 1246. This is going to be the maintenance intervals, and this is great because it's going to show them exactly how often hydrants were done. You can set it to which ones you missed and run a report. Multiple different ways to do the same thing, but these report numbers become pretty important when it talks about how to do these, and this just makes it a little easier. Throw these in here to try to help you all out. So, all right. That's the quick overview of what ISO is looking for. Now we'll go ahead and jump back into the system and kind of go from there to show you where we were and what we're talking about here. So in this hydrants module, the first section we talked about, excuse me one second, set this back. So the first section that we talked about within the hydrants module was our water supply being 40% of our score, and also our credit for the supply system. There's a few things that they're looking for. Big thing is, are the hydrants within 1,000 feet of an occupancy, that type of thing. A nice thing that I like to show on this is you've got all these different options up top here. And one of the big ones is switching to the map view over here. Make sure I've got all my fields cleared out. Okay, since we were typing in here, if you have anything typed in, it's only going to pull up what you're actually looking for. So all of these are filters and sort, ascending, descending, that type of thing. Okay, if you don't see the little arrow there, just have to click in the box that it'll appear. So double click it, it'll show up once or twice. So as we're going through this, make sure that you've cleared out all these fields and set everything to all so we can see all of our hydrants. I'm going to click on switch to map view there. Once I switch to map view, it's going to pop up and show me this map view of everything that I'm seeing. All right. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And as I zoom in, now you're going to see this is all set up color coordinated according to NFPA 291 and all of my flow test history. The nice thing about this is now if I want to see my occupancies, I click on occupancies here, and I've overlaid my occupancies as they pertain to the system and the hydrants. Okay. Now I don't expect you guys to understand or to see, where everything is or measure that type of thing to see how close a hydrant is to a building, but I did want to show you where this is at within this different view. Okay. That's the way that's going to look, all the hydrant numbers according to the flow. So now if you're using this map view instead of the grid view we were doing, I can actually go over a hydrant, select hydrant number 43, I click on it, it pops up with all of my information, shows me the address, shows me the location that we had put in there, and then all the information. I also have, like we talked about, this was the last gallon per minute at the last fire flow test that we did. Okay, I have the same options that we talked about before. We've got this print hydrant info. We can get in and edit any of the hydrant information. I'm going to click on this one to show you kind of what that looks like. All of this information. Okay, as you're adding a hydrant, you're going to put all of this information in. Okay, the details, this is where we talked about those main sizes, those barrel sizes, that type of thing. Your type, how that's set, all of that information, that's how this is set up in there. Your flow test, all that information, that's all within that one setting. I'm going to go ahead and click back here. And I'm going to have to go back into the map view. All right, so now the other thing we can do, again, like I talked about, we can actually upload our information, which we'll go over here at the end if you have any questions with that. With uploading any information. But if you're actually the one that is testing your hydrant, then you can actually click on here on the flow test and it'll pop up with your flow test. If you're doing a current flow test, click add new flow test and your formula shows up inside of here. Now, if you don't have all of this information because your flow tests are being performed by either a contractor or your flow tests are being performed by your water department, there's a way to upload that information and not have to fill all of these fields out. If you need to do that, you're going to go into the settings, into that upload imports area. And like I said, at the end, we can talk about how to do this if you guys are interested, if we have some time. But right now, I definitely want to show you the way that this is set up. All right. All right. And then the other one, like we talked about within that view, you've also got your work orders and your delete box that you can look at within the map view. So with that, are there any questions on the map view and looking at these hydrants? How to navigate that? Give it a couple seconds. All right. Not seeing any questions on there, but if you do, please jump in and ask those questions. So before I showed you I overlaid some occupancies, and I was talking about, well, how can I see how far away occupancies are? This is a nice view. So if ISO shows up and they want to do an audit, pull this up in map view. You can actually turn it on satellite and see your different occupancies in buildings. This kind of gets garbled for demonstration purposes today, but I'm going to leave that off for it. Now I can actually click on my occupancy and do the same thing I just did with my hydrants. So if I want to look at one, let's find a good spot here. All right. Let's do this. Sorry about this, guys. All right, let's click on this one here. This is going to pull up. Now I can click on the section. Now remember I talked about in those settings, I can find my needed fire flow that they're required for the ISO rating schedule in the occupancy module under Prefire Plans. The way I got there was just by going through the map, clicking on the occupancy the same way I did with the hydrant. Now I can come into my Prefire Plans here. This information has to have been loaded into your system for you, but once it's been loaded into the system, now you can start using it. So you put in the building feet, number of floors, and that's height, sorry, your width and your length, and then you can calculate and get your square footage. What we've done in this setting was we actually took our square footage, we got that off of our assessor's office and typed in our square footage, and then you fill in your combustible, whether it's non-combustible, limited combustible, combustible, that type of thing, free burning, all of this information for your fire load, and then your sprinklers. Is it sprinklered? Is it not sprinklered? And then it's going to calculate your needed fire flow for you. That's going to give you that information, okay? So all that needed fire flow information is there and can be extracted out. Now the next one, we talk about how far away is each hydrant. I talked about we need to be 1,000 feet. We're looking for our goal of 1,000 feet within each structure to a hydrant. If I click here on fire protection systems within the occupancy module again, now this list is all of my hydrants, and these are the closest hydrants and the available flows that have been done. So this right here, distance from occupancy, 131 feet, 195 feet, all this is listed which hydrant is the closest to the furthest away within that distance, okay? Now, all of these hydrants, obviously these available flows are pretty high. Our district has almost 2,000 feet of elevation gain and loss. So essentially our water distribution point starts 2,000 feet above a lot of our hydrants. So we have quite a bit of pressure coming out, pretty large mains, pretty good infrastructure. We're pretty lucky where I'm at. Now, once we get through this distance is as a crow flies. This is not driving distance to the hydrant to the building, but this is what ISO is looking for. That's what this is talking about, okay? Gives you your type, your location. So if ISO has a question and you want to demonstrate this, well, do we have a hydrant close enough to this building? You can search that specific building they have a question about and show them, okay, this hydrant was put in, recently since the last time you were out here, and you can actually give them a report on that, show them, hey, this is where it is, and it does calculate the feet for you, okay? So with that is talking about that first credit for hydrants. The other portion that we talked about, the main capacity, that main capacity or main size, that's all within the details portion of your hydrant setting that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to give it a second and ask if there are any questions here as it pertains to the first credit for hydrants portion that we talked about. All right. Okay. I'm going to go to the next portion that we talked about, which was credit for hydrants. I apologize. There we go. Now we're talking about our inspection flow and testing and how that's done. We talked about all those inspection flows, all those testing and how we're doing it. I think it makes sense, and if it doesn't, please ask those questions, guys, and we'll send it out there. We can go over it again, but I don't want to waste anybody's time here by going over specific, loading and doing a hydrant flow test. So I guess what we'll start with is our map view again because that's the way I like to do it. We're going to zoom in. We're going to pick a hydrant. All right. We started over here, and this is the hydrant we tested. I'm going to enter my flow test. All right. And I'm going to click on Add a Flow Test there. The start date and time, and again, this can be done like a lot of things within our system because it is web-based. This can be done from a phone, a smartphone, whether an Android or an iPhone. And this can also be done from a tablet, provided it has, internet connectivity. And you can enter all of this information. So you can click Start Time Now, tested by me, and just click on me if you're the one responsible for it, and then your static pressure, your residual pressure, and your desired pressure. This desired pressure in here, typically, and the way ISO wants to see this, the way American Water Works Association has determined, this should be 20 PSI because this is what all the gurus in the hydrant world have determined, in the hydraulics world, I guess I should say, have determined is the minimum pressure that you want to have. So your desired pressure should always be 20 PSI. Because if we drop below 20 PSI, we might have some problems with collapsing mains or, just running people out of water, that type of thing. That desired pressure is set there to be kind of your reserve pressure left for everybody else to use when you're fighting a fire. That's what you're looking at here. Now your static pressure is pretty straightforward. That's the pressure against the system as it's sitting still, not moving, static. And then your residual pressure is going to be the pressure once you have a hydrant downstream that's flowing. Okay, so this is your static pressure with no water flowing, and then the residual pressure, again, it's still static within this hydrant, but you've got a hydrant downstream that's actually flowing water. And what you're going to do is you type in your hydrant ID down here. We'll say it's 100 on there, and then the port diameter, 2.5 inch. And the more specific you get, the better here. It's up to you. And then friction coefficient. This one's neat. It's got a little bit of a choice to just choose what each one of them is. So is it rounded right here? When you stick your finger into that 2.5 inch, is it rounded? Is it squared off? Or is it inset where you can actually get your finger around some of the threads? That's going to be your coefficient. Now, a lot of meters are out there, pitot testing machines, things like that. I know this is kind of old technology. Some of that information is already in there. So we talk about this, that's 0.9. We've got different coefficients we can do. And if you cannot put this information in, your best bet is to go ahead and upload your information. Now, if you put this in here, this is 0.9. Again, this could be a user voice request, but right now you would just have to multiply this out. Now, that's not a huge difference, 0.9, but it's not going to give you your formula if you don't enter that pressure or enter that information. All right, and then your pitot pressure, this is your flow hydrant. So this is the test hydrant, this is your flow hydrant, whatever you're getting off that pitot test. So like I said, in our area, it's pretty high, but we'll say something kind of normal out there, maybe 45 PSI on there. All right, now static pressure, let's say 50, and residual pressure is going to be 35. All right. Okay, now if I don't fill this in, like I said, I can hit add another flow. It did not fill that in. So this is where I was talking about we got to have some sort of coefficient in there. 0.7, that's the lowest coefficient. The reason I choose 0.9 if my meter adjusts for it is I just take 10% off, and I know that's 10% higher. It's an easy math for me to do in my head. I'm a fireman. I'm not great at math, but I can manage some of it. All right. I can add multiple hydrants. The idea here is, according to the American Water Works Association book and NFPA 291, we're looking for a 10% drop between the static pressure and the residual pressure. So we need to open as many hydrants until we get that drop. The reason for that is gauges are not, they're accurate up to like plus or minus 3 PSI. It's really going to depend on the gauge that you get, but a lot of those gauges are only so accurate. So if you got a static pressure of 50 and then a residual pressure of, we'll say 48, well, that gauge may not be accurate. So we want to push this number down lower. And then every time that you open another hydrant, the formula behind the scenes, under the hood, as Tom talks about, the system's doing that math for you to give you that accurate number. Okay, so we want to try to get this down to, within this side, about 45 PSI. Be hard to get that, so we're probably looking at the 44 PSI with the even strokes on that gauge. So If we have another hydrant, we're just simply going to do the same thing. Now, these hydrants need to be opened and flowing at the same time. These hydrants have to be flowing at the same time. So you can see this is a bit of work for folks to get out and do that. It's going to take a couple people, coordinated efforts, and flowing quite a bit of water in some cases. So as you put that in there, you do the same information, just keep loading this. And these are all your downstream flow hydrants. Again, the test hydrant stays the same. All right, once you get through that, result passed or failed, and then your end time. All right, whenever it was done, I can click now. That's how long it took me to test. Now it's already factored in how long, if I'm doing it in real time from a tablet or a phone, real time, how long that took to test this hydrant, and then any remarks that we need to do. One thing that I found pretty useful in this is, hydrant needs raised, vegetation needs cleared, things like that. Maybe in Ryan's neck of the woods, hydrant needs chiseled out from all the ice that's built up from my 1,700 feet of snow I got. Anyway, this is what that information is used for, as any of those remarks. Click save, and it's going to save that information for you. I don't want to do it because this is my live account, so I don't want to save that information into my test. All right, so it looks like we're going at about 12:46 my time, so we got about 14 minutes left. I do want to open this up for questions. Anybody that has any questions, please jump in and ask those questions. Post it on there. Oh, Ryan?
Yeah, Chris. One thing I actually thought about when you were going through, and didn't want to interrupt you, but Roger made a great point that when you're in the map view of a hydrant, if you wouldn't mind, Chris, go ahead and open up one of your hydrants here.
Yep. You want me to go to the map view?
No, right into one of the hydrants here.
Okay.
Would be better, so we can show moving things around.
Do it.
So one of the benefits of having, the mapping is if Chris goes ahead and opened up the map view here for this individual hydrant and zooms in. So right now we're dealing with the hydrant itself. What you can do is go ahead and move that hydrant. We want to make sure that, if possible, that the hydrant is as close to where it is physically located as possible.
I don't know. This is
you're not going to.
Yeah. I'll get one back to you. I know what you're going with this.
And and the same thing goes for within the occupancies module. All of our addressing and plotting on the maps is based off of where Google Maps decides to plot things, which a lot of times is very accurate, but at times isn't either. So you can see in this case here, the pin for that hydrant is pretty close to where the hydrant physically is. So you're going to get pretty good results on this.
So if you look at this, one thing with Google Maps, the way this works, Ryan, I just wanted to show you on here, and that's a great point. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Ryan. If I click on move and put it on here, if I click this right on the hydrant as close as I can get from the satellite view, it's going to be more accurate from an aerial view for my purposes than on the ground. It's just a thing with Google Maps. GPS is only accurate at, I think it's like 40 feet. Don't quote me on that. It's not 100% accurate. It's not as accurate as, say, grid systems, that the military uses. This is GPS, so it's only accurate up to so many feet. So when I put my man down here, even though I've posted it, it's going to move it off. So what I've chosen to do is, rather than make every single one of them accurate according to the street view, because that's just not what we use very often, I've actually decided to use the aerial view on there. So, all right.
Actually, if you can go back into that for just a second, Chris.
Okay.
Well, as you notice, we also have our occupancies overlay. I'm not sure if you have all your occupancies in there or not, but if you just want to click on that and then zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, this one's going to be the occupancies overlay on there.
So you don't have any right in the immediate area, but the same thing goes for within the occupancies. Take the time as you create occupancies or modify or anything, to go in there and just make sure that the pin is exactly on the building itself, as opposed to out on the street, where Google is going to basically mapping where it is. It's like as Roger mentioned, that that's how you're going to get your accurate distances within your fire protection section of your occupancies, is by making sure that your pins for both your hydrants and your occupancies are as accurate as possible.
Thank you. That's a great point. Thank you for catching that. And the one thing, same thing with incidents, you would do the same thing. If I want to move this, it's just plotted it and say, a lot of times for me, it's put it in the wrong area. It's done something wrong on there. Say when I first got it, it put it over here, which obviously isn't accurate. I'm going to click on move. Then I'm going to grab the pin, pull it over, put it to where it is, and then click OK. That's going to save it. Then that's going to change my latitude and longitude within every part of the system when you're using Google Maps. If you move that pin, click move, and then click OK, that's going to move it. So my numbers are going to change according to how I did it, which is a great way. And this is, again, another great reason to do this in the field while you're out there, so you can stand there and say, okay, it's right about here on the corner of the building. And again, we're talking, accuracy, from this aerial view, I think is more important than the grid view. You can see when I roll them down here, it's just a little off. Not a big deal. We're talking, about a meter or something. So, it's still going to be close enough for their purposes. All right. So on that, let's see if there's any other questions. No, we just got something from Dale. All right. So with that, Ryan, I think what we'll do, since we don't have any other questions, we got a few more minutes, we could talk about uploading hydrant information. You want to do that?
Yeah, we can touch on that briefly.
All right.
So back within the settings where we started out, the far right tab, I'm sure you've probably noticed, is the imports tab. This does kind of two things for us. Allows us to import either a master list of hydrants in. So if we're starting out, we want to get all our hydrants in there. Our water district has a list of hydrants. We can simply go in and upload this information. So a couple things that are important here is you have the ability to download a sample, which is what Chris is doing right now. And this shows all the different fields that you're able to import and the formatting that they're supposed to be in. So this is a great way to make sure that you can match up what you have for information with the formatting of whatever your water district or other entity gave to you. So a lot of times what that might be is simply just reordering columns, things like that. And you'll notice back here, once he closes out of that, what we've got is, it tells you exactly what type of content each needs to be, whether it's text, date, etc., what the size limitation is for each one of those, and then whether it's a required field. So in this case, you'll notice that for importing hydrants themselves, the only thing that's required is a hydrant ID. And that will bring things into the system, and from there you can either manually add things to the hydrants from within the system if you didn't have them at the time of doing the import.
And the one thing about this, guys, just to tag in on Ryan's information here, if you upload a CSV file into this and you have hydrants that are currently in there, it will ask you, do you want to overwrite current data? And if you overwrite the data, it's going to change it to whatever you've done within your settings, within your CSV or your Excel document that you've done. So this is a great way to change something if you wanted to within the hydrant. So if you're well into the system and you've designed something and you're like, hey man, I really like the typing that Chris did, not that you'd say that, I'm just tooting my own horn here, but if you wanted to do that and do types within the CSV file, you could actually go in, and I'll show you real quick how to do that. Go into our hydrants. All right. And we want to look in CSV download with everything in there. Here are all of my hydrants. And now say I wanted to change everything to that new typing that I talked about, that I just showed you guys today. I can actually go through here and change all of my types in one setting, and then save this file and then re-upload that into the system. Just be careful, because this is going to change all of your existing data, and you want to make sure if you're going to organize this or filter it that you actually go through and say, you know, if you're going to sort something, so we'll say, just for example, it's going to pop up with this option saying expand with selection or continue. You don't want to just move this information and not the rest of the information with it. So you want to always choose expand the selection. Just be careful when you're doing this, because you don't want to mix up all your data and screw it up from there. If you have questions, again, contact support, we can go through it. But this is more of an advanced Excel user. If you know what you're doing with Excel, it can definitely save you some time. But I would definitely recommend the people that are good with Excel going through and doing this. So.
And just something to keep in mind is that anytime that you are preparing to do an import, always go and download your CSV first of all your data, just so you have that backup in case something doesn't work the way that you wanted it to. And then just we'll jump into the flow test import real quick. And for the most part, it's pretty much the same thing that you're going to do here as importing your hydrants themselves. So there's really not much more to talk about here. Again, just follow the same procedures, and you'll notice that here you have an additional requirement of a date when it was started. So just keep that in mind. But other than that, it's really not a lot different. One of the things here, the advantage that we have for doing a flow test import is if you have any drafting sites, whether they're dry hydrants or things like that, that you want to be able to determine what the flow capacity is for that. This is going to be the best way to do that, because if you try to do a manual entry for your flow testing within the hydrants module itself, we don't have the upstream hydrant and all the other information that's required for a pressurized flow test. That we don't, that's not available when we try to do like a dry hydrant or something like that. So if you use this flow test import for your dry hydrants, that's a way that you can put in, what the flow is that each of those is capable of.
And what Ryan's talking about right here, also with the dry hydrants, if you have pressure hydrants, but you have a company that comes in and gives you a list of all of your volume at desired pressure, so you don't know all this other information, static, residual, all of that information that they want in there because they've done it for you. All you have to do is come in here and actually, as Ryan said, download your hydrants, your hydrant information, and I'll go back to one real quick and do that. Let me open this up. So we go in here, and you can actually just change now that information. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't upload the correct portion. So what you're going to do is go in and actually just change just that field. So go back in. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'll just go back into here. So you're just going to change the information for that actual just have to expand these out and show you where it's at. So all of this is your, inside diameter of flow port, pitot pressure, coefficient, downstream GPM. All that information you probably don't have if somebody has done your hydrants for you. So if that's the case, you're going to put all of your hydrants in, download those hydrants as we showed you earlier, and then you're actually going to go in here and do your desired pressure volume. There it is, right here. So you're just going to add these in. So it would just be as simple as, whatever those numbers are, 2300, 1800, all the way through. And you would just go by the hydrant ID on there. So, all right. Looks like we're at about 1 till. So I'm hoping that everybody's kind of gotten an idea of how to use this. Again, contact support, send training@emergencyreporting.com an email if you have any questions about this. Um, if you want to review this or tell your friends about it to watch it later, rewind it, pause it, watch it at your own time, you can do that. Should be posted in about a week or two. Uh, that's about it. I'll stay on here for a few minutes and see if there's any questions that come up. If not, then I will just sign off here in about a couple minutes. Thank you, Ryan, for your help. Thank you, Roger. Big shout out to Roger Parker in Avondale, Arizona, one of our power users. Great, great resource. Offers a lot of help to everybody in the system. Um, awesome guy for knows the occupancy module and these types of things extremely well. I'm going to be reaching out to him for some STPC accreditation stuff. So, also Dale, thanks for looking out for us, buddy, being in the background to answer questions. And Ryan, man, thank you. I couldn't have done this without you. I appreciate it, man.
Not a problem.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and close it for the day. Hope you guys enjoyed yourselves and stay safe out there. Take it easy.